These handball courts are the most prestigious handball courts in America. These are where the greatest handball players in the history of handball have played.
It's hollowed ground. It's like the Wailing Wall of handball. It's like center court in Wimbledon. It's the place where the National One-Wall Handball Tournament was held for the last 60 years. Literally, the blood, sweat, and tears of all the great handball players that ever lived have seeped into the actual concrete of the courts. One of those guys was Morris Levitsky, who kind of in a weird way is one of the most famous guys in handball, and he wasn't really even a player. He was like a referee. He was more than just a referee. He was kind of the referee.
He happens to be like a legend, and he still happens to be the legend, no matter what.
So you must be a handball player, otherwise
Not
you wouldn't
really.
be here.
Did you introduce yourself, Morris?
No.
Please introduce yourself.
We just honored Morris Levitsky for all his many years of service as the AAU chairman of handball, as a referee, as a guy who's always around. He's like a handball historian.
I was a Metropolitan AAU chairman of handball. I had a title. And my job was to see that matches were played right, the tournament was run right, the referees did their right job, so forth and so on. So I said to my friend Mickey Blackman, Mickey, let me go over and talk to Sandler. Come with me. I said, Sandler, Stevie, I don't like the way this match ended. You'll have to do us a favor. You'll have to replay the match. So Sandler says to me, as a favor to you, and to you only, I'll do it. We called up Texas, the head man of handball, Eli Pickens. And he said to me, by no means can you play the championship match over. It's unheard of. No one ever did such a thing. I says, Mr. Pickens, I never met you. You never met me. I says, but in Brooklyn, handball is a major sport. And I got to live throughout the entire winter knowing that somehow or other this match didn't end according to the way it's supposed to, according to Hoyle. So he said to me, well, if you people want it that way, okay, you can replay the match, but I'm against it. They replayed the match. Sandler won something like 21-8, 21-11. But before the match started, Carl Obert walked over me, shook my hands and says, look, I bear no grudges. I'm glad to have the opportunity to replay the match. He made me feel good. And when the match was over, Jimmy Jacobs called me handsome. I said, do me a favor. Autographed his rule book. He did. I held on to it as long as possible. Finally gave it away. The match was over, and that was the end of it. That's the whole story.
I remember him when I was a high school player. He was coaching me, telling me how to play, and I wound up to be probably the greatest one-wall player that ever lived. I won like 30 national singles and doubles titles. And I remember him when I was young. I mean, he was around when I was like 15, 16. And the guy didn't really age much. He kind of looked exactly the same, which was weird also. He just always looked like 70. And when he was 30, he looked 70. And when he was 90, he still looked like he was 70. He dominated the place more than all the players did. Some guys are just like towering figures. Like, you get a guy like Muhammad Ali. Look at the world, look at the difference he made, in the world. And, this guy Levitsky, even though outside of the handball world, he wasn't very well known, within the handball world, he towered like a colossus. If there was any argument, you would go to him and he would just settle it, whether it was a rules argument or whether it was which player was better or whatever it was.
As long as you get kids to play, it's important. It's better to have them play with the big ball, small ball, paintball, as long as you keep them hanging out with hooligans. That, you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
See, handball becomes part of history, and Levitsky happens to be the main man. He happens to be one of the best, and I'm still have a picture of him and everything, him and I together. We're going back a lot of years when I first ran into him and everything, when his brother Russell took me by the hand and put me on a mermaid parade. He said, "You are el campeón," which means I am the champ. I used to hang out with him a lot of everything. I learned a lot of certain things from him, and everything I knew or what I know, I learned from the Mario Levitsky. I'm a paddleball instructor and a handball instructor.
Many years ago, my father, Alex Nowitzki, passed away. My father taught me the golden rule: do unto others as you want others to do unto you. My uncle, Morris Nowitzki, was a strong, brilliant man, even into his late 80s. But I looked after him just to make sure he was okay. One day I called Morris, and he didn't answer the phone. I went to the handball courts to look for him, and he wasn't there. I called the hospital, and they told me he was there. I asked for his condition, and they told me that he was in critical condition. I then called my cousin, Maya Nowitzki, to go with me to the hospital. When we went to the hospital, he was on a respirator and he was on life support. I asked for the nurse to call the pulmonologist and the doctor. They came, and the doctor informed me that he's never going to wake up. When the doctor says there's no hope for the doctor. I then called my uncle Abraham Nowitzki. I found Dr. Sherman, who was one of the chief doctors of Columbia Presbyterian Hospital, and he was so kind to accept him as a transfer patient, although he was on life support. We then got an ambulance, brought him to Columbia Presbyterian Hospital. I was so sad. My cousin Maya was so sad, but we never give up. I went to the hospital 5 days later, and Morris woke up. He didn't die. The tears rolled down my eyes. I thank God for one of the greatest miracles I had ever seen or might ever see. He didn't live a perfect life. He was in a wheelchair, but he enjoyed his life. He went to the handball courts. He met his friends. There are 2 lessons here. The first, never give up. The second, never give up.
If I gave you a camera and I said, describe Bruce Lee and his importance, I give you 5 minutes, it's impossible to do it. Some things are beyond, it's like describing infinity. It can't be done. The guy was larger than anything that you can say.
Handball was part of my life, and I wanted things to be done right.